underserved communities, as well as providing information for those who are very familiar with how to generate and build wealth. You know, today is a very special day as we are presenting you wealth, knowledge, as well as opportunities for you all to learn, ask questions, and feel free to jump in. What we want to do first is bring on Reverend Johnny Flowers, you know, as we appreciate him being able to allow us to utilize his facilities today. So if you'll come up for it and just say a few things, we appreciate that.
Can we give God a hand clap of praise?
You probably don't need a microphone. You got this. Wow. I tell you what, this is a super duper exciting time. We're elated that y'all came out to participate in the Seed for Wealth conference today. Because one thing that we know, and we all kind of get sidetracked sometimes, but God, whom he called, he qualifies. And whom he qualified, he's equipped. He equips. When God gives vision, he sends provision. A lot of times, God has given us all vision to do certain things, but sometimes we overlook it because we get bogged down in our current situation and we lose focus on what our possibilities are. These gentlemen today on this panel are going to open up our eyes. I have a challenge for you. Anytime we have anything at Wynnewood Fellowship Church, we always say 2200 thing, where God is always doing his thing. Anytime we come together, I challenge you to always have a takeaway. So today, in the Seed for Wealth conference symposium, I want you to have a takeaway. Come here with the mindset of what am I going to pull from these gentlemen? It's going to make me better. It's going to make me wiser. It's going to take me to the next level in what God has called me to do. A lot of times we have priorities, we have situations, we have circumstances that happen in life, and that's a trick of the enemy because it gets us distracted and say, wait a minute, maybe this is not what God wants me to do. But then you come to a conference like today, and it reminds you, wait a minute, I know where I'm supposed to be. All I need to do is get somebody to give me that hand up, not a handout. And today they're going to provide us with that handout of information to take us further down, deeper out, and be able to reach those goals and objectives. So without any further ado, I just want to invoke God's presence over this situation. Thank you for being a part of Wynnewood Fellowship Church. This is also Frame House Outreach Foundation. We are a foundation where we do a lot of great stuff in the community. Some of y'all may have seen those apartments next door, the apartments up the street. I serve as the ombudsman for developing this community, and we're in the process right now of building 300 more new apartments right across the street up on the other side of Louisiana. So vested in this community, being able to break the cycle of poverty, being able to grow wealth, plant seeds of wealth, this is what we're designed to do. Because God said over in John 10:10, he said, I came to give life and life more abundantly. But sometimes we forget about that. Amen? Let us pray. First of all, let us just breathe in and breathe out. And as we're breathing in and breathing out, this quiets our spirit. Father, we ask that you be the honored guest here today as we go deeper down and further out. As we have this panel discussion, Lord, we ask that you open up our ears and open up our heart canal so we can receive the knowledge information that's going to take us to the next level. Today, we thank you because you said in your word, where 2 or 3 are gathered in your name, you're in the midst also. It's more than 2 or 3 of us in this room. So, Father, we ask you to be glorified in all that we say and all that we do. In Jesus Christ's name, I pray, and those who agree just simply say amen. If you don't mind, will you give God a hand clap of praise? Your housekeeping, food will be ready promptly 12. So we're going to make sure that we have plenty of time for our questions and answers. We want to also let everybody know that the ladies' bathroom is straight out this door here. Also, the men's bathroom is to your right, the next door down. If you need to, some people would like to smoke cigarettes or whatever the case may be. Maybe this is overwhelming. You have to have a mental health moment and exhale in that heat. Matter of fact, you just walk right on out the end door and go to the end of the parking lot. It's okay. Amen. Enjoy yourself. Welcome to Wynnewood Fellowship Church. Hey, we're excited that you're here, and I pray that you have a takeaway today that's going to empower you mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and especially financially. Amen.
Appreciate you, Flowers.
Yes, sir.
I'm normally walking around, so I'm not a sit-down person talking. I'm going to have to do it in a few. But one of the things I've seen and what we talk about here is wealth within reach. And what a lot of times we don't know, we perish for a lack of knowledge. So right now, we're bringing you knowledge in order for you to become better prepared prepared to build that wealth that you're looking for. It is always attainable. Some people start off very well, some people don't. But the fact of the matter is that when you get the information, it is what you're able to do with it. So there's not always excuses. We can't blame somebody else. We can't blame the white man. We can't blame the system. What you do is you have to seek out that information. If you don't seek it out for yourself, then you are doing yourself a disadvantage in order to get to the places that you want to go. You know, so one of the things I like to do is just break the ice. And so from this one, you know, I never assume that everyone knows everything. I don't care how seasoned you are, whether you have a mortgage veteran, I don't care if you've been in real estate for a long time, whatever it is, I never like to assume, because there's always something you can learn. And I've learned a hard lesson from my kids. I have 5 kids, you know, 3 boys, 2 girls. And recently I was just hanging out with my youngest daughter. We try to do date nights or whatever. And so we were hanging out, you know, I got us some, we had some pizza. So we just chilling, hanging out, talking. I said, you know what, let's get some dessert. So root beer floats is one of my favorite things. And she likes cakes. So I picked up a root beer float. She got a cake. And we're just sitting down chatting and talking. And we were actually sitting in a food hall. And they had a beer joint next to it. So I was almost finished with a root beer. And she looked at me and said, Dad, well, don't you want another beer? And so I was looking. So I was confused because I was like, I don't drink beer like that. You know what I mean? I'm not drinking beer with you anyway. So we're sitting there talking. I said, what? It dawned on me. I was like, oh, I'm drinking root beer. So my daughter, and I thought about this, I was like, so I asked her, I said, you think I'm drinking beer? And then we get behind the wheel and we're driving. She said, yeah, I thought that. And I was like, man, for how long did y'all think this? So my kids are 21, 18, 15, and twins that are 12. So for their whole lives, I've been drinking root beer floats, and the whole life they thought I was a drunk. So that's one of the things I never like to assume. You know, I was like, gosh, now I'm gonna traumatize my kids for life. So, but here, I never want to assume that y'all know everything. There are gonna be some basic questions, and then there's gonna be a deeper dive on questions and answers that we have. So I just want to make sure that everybody's prepared. You come with a clear mind, clear heart, and we're gonna listen and ready to learn. And so first up, you know, these are my 2 partners. I want to introduce Demond Edwards first. Demond Edwards, give a little background about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And good afternoon. It's safe to say, yes, I think so. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Demond Edwards, co-founder here with Seeds for Wealth. My background has been an executive side work with higher education for over 2 decades. I spent most of that time training individuals from the medical side of the world, first responders, nurses, nurse practitioners, you name it. We trained them across the world. A lot of good experiences there. But I started my career out as an entrepreneur at the age of 22 and sold my first company. And like I said, I dedicated 20 years to the corporate world, and I came back over to that. But one of the things I learned on that journey was, you know, you can build financial habits, you can build financial wealth, and in order to build financial wealth, you have to invest in yourself. And that was one of the biggest things I've learned is my 9 to 5 is not responsible for taking care of me and building generational wealth for my family and my generation to come. So I spent a lot of time getting into real estate investing. I spent about the last 15 years doing a lot of real estate investing. I run up east to the West Coast, single family, multi-family investing. So that's a little bit about my background outside of the corporate side of it. But Seeds for Wealth is really where my heart is. And I'm just excited today to be here to talk a little bit about some of the things I've learned that I think will be of value to some of you.
All right, so I got a question for you right quick. What is financial literacy?
Yeah, I like to simplify things first, being an educator. It's just arming yourself with the awareness and the access and the tools to be able to make smart money decisions. Okay, I look at it like riding a bicycle. So you ride a bicycle, you have to learn. But if you never attempt to ride that bicycle, you're never going to get there. So I say that to say this. A lot of individuals say, when you look at a person across the room from you, you automatically disqualify yourself by saying, I can't get there, or I didn't have this opportunity. Well, when I look at financial literacy, I've been doing this for about 30 years, but even with that, I still find myself a student of learning financial literacy every day. The panel that we have here, all of you, every conversation I have with every individual is always a learning opportunity for me in financial literacy. So that is my answer to what financial literacy is.
Appreciate that. The next gentleman we have next to us is another co-founder of Seeds for Wealth. This is Robert Vaughn, and so if you can introduce yourself and give a little bit of that background.
Well, let me say good afternoon to everyone, and again to Reverend Flowers What a great facility, and I'm super excited about the work and the investments that you guys are doing in the community. And I'm also excited about this amazing panel we have here, so you guys can learn about them in a moment. As they said, Robert Bowman, co-founder and managing partner here at Seeds for Wealth. It's actually crazy to see, especially the conversations we had over the last decade of just, us coming from different areas. I'm from Chicago, Illinois, grew up in poverty, welfare, you name it. I was writing a book when I first met Dee, and it was called From the Mud to Millionaire. And we just got to talking about how we don't have people who model what we look like. I was in St. Louis at Harris Stowe University, it's an HBCU. And I'll never forget, they introduced me to come and speak about how I built my first $1 million, which my background actually started in tech. I was one of those guys who didn't listen to his mom when she said leave those girls alone. So in high school, I had a daughter, and that changed everything for me because I knew immediately. My mother said, "You're no longer a baby. You're grown. Somebody is more important than you now." And not having any education, any degree, working at Whataburger, etc., I knew this wasn't going to pay the bills. So what's amazing is to see how I feel like even now, I actually worked harder back then and I had nothing to show for it. And what I've really learned is how to work smarter. And so really what this is about for me is mindset. And it's about taking what we've learned. I built a tech company by myself and hired college students to go do the work who majored in IT and sold it to Microsoft for $10 million, which we'll talk about later, but that was a bad idea. But it was a blessing. Some of you guys may be familiar with Fogo de Chao restaurant. I was one of the original founders and investors in that. And so for me, my background is tech first, but I spend most of my time investing in retail, real estate, hookah lounges, you name it. I finally got deep to invest some of his money in the stock market. We'll talk about that. I do a lot of investments in art, but for the most part, for me, this is really just about bringing what we've learned to you guys so that you can take that knowledge, as Pastor said, and just use your own individual gifts and capacity to make this work for you. Because what we know is each one of us have our own brilliance that's unique to us like a snowflake. And I can give you the same information and you can take it with your talents, your way of thinking, etc., and do something totally different for me that makes you prosperous. And more importantly, it creates generational blessings and stop the generational curses. At the end of the day, this was all about, I'm going to say this last thing and pass it back to you, Mike. When I was in St. Louis, we did the same very thing here. I was representing my company. We did this at a historical Black college, and no one African-American or color was in the audience. We had 1,500 people show up. And we're looking around like, okay, we brought this to the community. Where's our community at? We brought this free to our community. So thank you guys for showing up. I run a national nonprofit teaching technology to young adults, and you will be amazed. This is free training. We give you a job after 6 months, and you'll be amazed how many white kids show up in line. They're ready to work. They're ready to sign up, etc. And we designed this for our community. So my point is, we got to let our young people start seeing themselves in this picture, and they got to understand how to get access. And all of us, there's a lot of successful people I know out here in this audience. We got to figure out how to work together, build community, and then take it to our young people so that they see that there's options out there.
No, well said. So I'm going to turn it back to you right quick. So Demond talked about education as far as financial literacy goes. Tell me or tell the audience, how do you define wealth education?
It's a great question. As Demond said, that financial literacy is the foundation. He used a term, and the pastor used a term that's super important, and the key term was tool. For us, wealth education says, once you understand the fundamentals, debits and credits, how to manage your money, how to save your money, how to budget, all those things there. How do you start then making that money work for you? How do I do something once? You measure 5 times so you only have to cut once. For me, wealth education means the work that you're doing, the intellectual capacity and capital that you're creating, the intellectual property you're creating, all of it is working for you. I got good friends in the audience, and they know a lot of times I will text them at 10:30 in the morning, and that's about what time I wake up. And I always send them a screenshot of my stock market portfolio. And I'm like, look, I made $4,000 the first hour. And I do that not to brag. I do that just to show them while I'm asleep and I wake up, I have money working for me. So whether it be real estate, whether it be my whole life policies, whether it be the restaurants, etc. Wealth education means how do I take the resources that I have, the tools that I have, and then make that work for me by either leveraging people, leveraging time, or leveraging other people's money. So that's really what it is for us.
I think it's important to know when you get into the world of investing and trying to build your wealth, everything's going to look good. But if you look at anyone that's been successful, they become obsessed with something, not everything. So it's very important that you pick that one area and get your training wheels on. And once you take those training wheels off, then you can dive into other areas. What I alluded to earlier, it finally got me to invest into stocks. Stock is not my thing. It's a business acquisition for my thing. So I stay in that wheelhouse where I'm at, and I'll explore, but I also open myself up to opportunities to have that discussion.
This man right here. I've seen this man call me up and show me the ugliest, worst house I've ever seen in my life. And he say, hey, cash dollars, let's go buy it. I'm like, I don't know about this house, man. He's like, let's do it. I'm glad I listened to him because he got me out of my comfort zone with real estate. I give him a stock tip. Now, the stock went down 1 cent. And he called me like it was a emergency. Like, what's going on? And I'm like, oh, look at the stocks. You can see he lost like $100. Like, he want to sell everything. So it's amazing that he says that because everybody has their different comfort zone. But the one thing we've learned and agreed on, because first of all, I've been through bankruptcy. So I want to stay here and act like I did it right. And yes, my first $1 million, I bought a lot of cars with spinning rims and watches and everything else the wrong way. So I had to learn some things. That's after I made $1 million. So I had to go learn some things. So you're going to fail. You're going to make mistakes. You probably might not always be in the right situation. But guys, you just got to understand how to use your knowledge, your mindset, get the education, and leverage that. And hopefully you can learn from some of the things we're going to show that.
I think a lot of times we focus on what people have attained up to this point, and we don't see what people had to go through in order to get to that point. And so when you look at Robert, coming from poverty in the city of Chicago, you look at Demond coming from Florida, single parent, household, 11 kids, she had to make it work. You start looking, you look at myself, and I'm not talking about how we grew up. I grew up with, my sisters in the back, but I grew up with 2 parents that had me while they were in college. So when they got out of college, they were still educated poor because they had no money, they had a kid, and they had to find out how to make it. And so even in such, I'll sit here, he went through bankruptcy as an adult. I was foreclosed on during the downturn I had all 5 of my kids. My wife at the time was pregnant, with our twins. And so imagine having to move from a 5-bedroom home to a 2-bedroom apartment, and having to start completely over. You know what I mean? And so I'm saying that is to say you can start over. It doesn't matter what baseline you have. It doesn't matter. You can't give up. You have to make sure you had that determination. And again, he said he had a daughter, so there was something else outside of him that said, I have to go get it. And there's something outside of each one of you all, and also internally, that you just have to tap into and say, I gotta go get it. And so when you have those things that you want to go after, and then you acquire the knowledge and you look at what you have, because we all have resources, whether we have them personally or not, but each person next to you is a resource. So many times we live in our community and we don't tap into one another because we want to have, and we want to keep it to ourselves. Again, we give a free game. This is nothing that we're asking of you all. This is something that we're bringing to the community, and we're saying, you know what, we want to give it to you because we love y'all. Whether I know you or not, you are me and I am you. We are a reflection of one another. And if I'm not willing to give it to you and nobody else is willing to, then we're going to continue this cycle that we have been since Black people have been in this country, is that we are the have-nots and we need to be the haves. So continue to listen up. And then this introduction is to our first panelist, Ms. Tiffany Mahone. And then she is a realtor. So Tiffany, give us a little bit of background about yourself.
Well, where do I start? I mean, you guys all share very deep personal things. All of your stories have something to do with the risk, being able to take that step. So a little bit about myself. I'm first generation born in the United States. My family's from Guyana, South America. I'm first generation high school and college graduate at that as well. My parents had me at the age of maybe 14 years old. So when it comes to figuring out life on my own, that was something, well, not on my own, I always had God. So, that's one thing about me. I'm a servant and a steward before I'm anything else. God's always been on my side, and I started real estate. Honestly, most people would think that I've been in real estate for about 5 to 10 years from the amount of knowledge and the advancement that God has been able to excel me in the last 1.5 years. And just to explain my portfolio at that is I've been able to secure over $10 million in contracts in my first year of real estate, which when people told me, oh, Tiff, you're not going to sell a house in your first year, I've been a full-time entrepreneur for 4 years. So taking risk is all I understand. I don't understand doing the 9 to 5. I mean, I tried it and I realized, oh my gosh, this is limiting my calling and my purpose. There's so much that I have to share. I'm also founder of my passion, which is Modest Muse Org, a women empowerment nonprofit that provides business development and personal development resources to the community. And we host different events and seminars with charitable twists. So every single month, whether we're going out into the community, serving the homeless, we're providing prom dresses and tuxedos for the high school students at Sunset and through the Dallas ISD area. We're also working with Together We Rise Foundation, Haven of Love Dallas. I've found different partnerships within the last year where we partnered with over 33 different organizations in 3 years in order to give back, whether it's financially, physical, or something like that. But then with Modest Muse, everything that I poured into the community was self-funded. I worked 4 jobs while going to school full-time in order to get my criminal justice degree. With that being said, building Modest Muse, coming here, my purpose, going through so much trial and tribulation, I was like, oh my gosh, women need help. Women need a safe space. They need a place to be honest. They need a place to be protected, especially women in business. Because I will say this, being the only woman on a panel of all these amazing, respectful, great gentlemen that I do honor and respect on a very high level, it can be very intimidating. If I'm being completely honest and completely brutally, especially at my age, I'm still in my early 20s, well, late 20s. But I've been able to, be around them and take their ideas, their wisdom, their knowledge, and also my knowledge and wisdom from my team that I work with, and I'll get into real estate in a second, in order to help provide the information and the knowledge that other people need to succeed. Because this journey is not about me. Nothing about it has to do with me. It's about the people. And it's about using me as a vessel to touch other lives. So if it's the knowledge of real estate and helping you build home ownership and understanding equity, that's something that I'm here to be able to provide the knowledge in that way, and my team as well. Because it's not just about one person, it's about making sure that you have the right team, because where 2 or more gather, there's much reward, So just really understanding that. Now, real estate. Real estate, that has been a journey for me. I love real estate. Like I said, I've been able to be very successful in real estate within my first 2 years. I got into the investment realm. I am VP of operations for Built-In Realty Group. I have a couple of my Built-In people here that, whether they're realtors, investor specialists, investors in the companies, we help people find their investment needs and make sure that we find the return that you guys are seeking. Know how to move your capital, how to move your cash. But I got into that doing regular residential, and I'm also a GMA agent, a global marketing certified agent, which means I also do properties abroad. So I sell properties in Mexico, I sell properties in Barcelona, anywhere I have connections to be able to do that, and I've been successful with doing that as well. And I've had a brick and mortar, Taste of Gaia. My fiance and I, we also owned a club on 6th Street in Austin for a couple of years. So when it comes to business, that's my blood. I watched my family come here from a third world country and build something out of nothing. And that's what motivated me. So coming here and understanding people kind of being more stagnant, I'm like, what is this? I look at Dallas and I'm like, you're on a treadmill, but you go to the East Coast and the West Coast, you're more an incline. When you come here, it's easy. All you got to do is put the work in and have faith and believe that you can truly do it and surround yourself with the right people and resources, and you can take over the world. So I'm grateful to be here. I'm sure there's so much more about me, but women empowerment in general, because our women are our men, our women are our families. The more that we fix ourselves, the more our families change. The more we educate ourselves, the more that we're able to love our men more in order to create the family, be able to break the generational curses that Mike was speaking about earlier. So yeah, if you want to get to know me a little deeper, definitely speak to me after. But I'm excited for this panel and all the knowledge you can give.
Well, question for you. I'm not going to assume that everybody knows what a realtor is. So kind of walk me through what that process is for being a realtor, the services you provide, and how you can help, each individual, someone who's looking for a home.
Well, being a realtor, there's multiple ways to get in real estate, whether that's leasing, whether that's home purchasing, whether that's selling a home if that's something you already have, or your family may have a home or lots that you may need to get rid of and you don't know where to start with that. And then just home ownership in general. The first thing, I'm very big on knowledge. I think that everybody needs to be knowledgeable when it comes to the real estate industry and understanding what you're getting yourself into. So that's why I'm glad that we have mortgage professionals here, because financing is big. People's number one problem is, how do I get the money to do that? I don't have $200,000, $300,000 to put towards a house. So being a realtor is beyond just being a realtor, where you're emotional, like a therapist at some moment, where you're financial advisors, where you're tax accountants, we're literally every single thing that you need in the background just to be able to support you through your journey. So when it comes to just what a realtor is, we're finding you the best equity that you could possibly get in. Your house is your biggest purchase in your life. You think about anything that's bigger than your home purchase. So your realtor is a very lucrative role when it comes to just your investment and your equity. We negotiate your deals. We make sure that you get into that house with down payment assistance or whatever it may need for you to make sure that you make the most out of your investment. So being a realtor, it's caring, it's understanding the wealth that can be accumulated through understanding what real estate has to offer. And it's about knowing people's niche and their appetite and putting them and placing them exactly what their appetite desires.
So, if I was into purchasing a home, what does that look like? I'm coming to you, and so walk me through that process of purchasing a home.
Well, you'll talk to me first.
Mm-hmm.
I'll definitely gauge what your appetite is. How many beds, how many baths, your square footage. And then from there, I'm going to tell you that you need to talk to my lender, unless you just have cash. If you have cash, it's a totally different conversation. But I'm going to connect you with my lender first. Typically, Mike has been my lender for a couple of people here in the audience. I connect them with Mike. They have a conversation. We figure out what they're pre-approved for. And then I start your search process. I'll go ahead and I start looking for houses that are within the price point that Mike has given me. And then we go looking, we start showing, the emotional factor, being able to see the houses, view the houses. I take you through that experience. From there, then when we find a house, we go under contract. When we go under contract, I walk you through every single step that under contract, from what is your upfront expenses, from your earnest money, from your option fees, from just understanding all your upfront expenses when it comes to purchasing a house, just to know that you're better educated. But I walk you through and hold your hand every step of the way, as a good realtor should, because it is a lot of emotion that's involved with this purchase in this transaction, but I'm communicating with you every step of the way to make sure that you find the home that you desire.
Thanks, Sylvia. So she mentioned the financial aspect of it, and usually that's part of the most stressful place that you are going to deal with as far as buying a home. So I'm going to segue to the finance guy that's here, Damien Gilbert, if he doesn't mind coming up. And so he'll be able to give a little bit about himself as well, what he does, how long he's been doing it, and I appreciate you.
First of all, good morning. Good morning. I want to say thank you. First of all, Reverend Flowers, this is a beautiful, beautiful place, and thank you for hosting us in this space. I have to publicly say, first of all, Buzz, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. When you see your friends, again, I went to college with this gentleman, and just seeing you guys walking your purpose. And one of the things that we've been talking about for years, is having a wealthy mindset. Again, wealth isn't about dollars, right? It's about the mindset that you have. You have to build from that. My name is Damien Gilbert, Senior Vice President for Regions Bank, and I'm in the mortgage space. I am originally from California, went to college in Birmingham, and this is the first man that I met when I came to the South. So it's fun to be full circle. I would, what is that? You saw what? This is the first man? No, he's been loyal, been a good friend.
Let's segue from there. So we're serious right now.
Yeah.
And that's never really happening. Right
It's
now.
hard for me right now.
It's
always jokes here. So, but no, it's great to be here. But I'm in the mortgage space and been doing it for 25 years. It's funny when you start moving around in the finance space and you realize mortgage is it. I found out that was my passion. Helping people get into homes, build generational wealth through purchasing, selling, acquiring property. I always tell the story, and Mike knows this story pretty intimately. When I came from California, went through college, went through all that stuff, and was about to buy my first home. I was 24 years old actually, and went through the process and was really nervous. Again, I went through college, mom sent me off, again, single family household, and we lived in this house. I moved to this house when I was 5 years old, moved from an apartment complex to this house. And I just remember the vision of what this felt like being in this home. And so I called my mom as 23 years old, about to buy this house. And I said, Mom, tell me about the process. Again, we talk about assuming, right? I tell my mom, tell me about the process. And she said, what are you talking about? I said, Mom, tell me about the process when you bought the home when I was 5 years old. And she said, baby, I have no clue what you're talking about. I said, you bought the house that rent. She said, no, baby, the house that I live in now, I still rent, is what she said. I said, okay, that blew my mind, right? But when I think back to that, I assume my mother owned the home. She didn't have a wealthy mindset. She just didn't know, right? She just knew to work. She didn't allow the equity and the money to work for her. And so that informed me. It informed who I was. And I realized that I have to be on the journey to make sure that I help people understand buying real estate is the quickest and the fastest way to build wealth in this country. So I have really deep passion about that and talk about that everywhere I go. There's some people walk in the room, you realize this is what you were born to do, this is what I'm born to do. So thank you.
Cool. So question for you is that we just have a real estate agent next to us. So what is the difference between a real estate agent and a mortgage lender?
Yeah, sometimes there is no difference sometimes, right? So real estate agent sends their client to us, and we qualify these people, qualify folks on figuring out if you're income ready, credit ready, or if you have the assets ready to purchase a home. It's our job to make sure, and I always ask the question, Mike and I, when we're talking to clients, always ask, what do you want to pay? There's three things if you're trying to, it doesn't matter whether you are a first-time buyer, second-time buyer, what do you want to pay? What is your goal? What's your end goal? Again, if you're looking for a $1,000 payment or a $500 payment, you can't be out there buying a $500,000 home. So we need to level set there, right? The second thing we try to get into is make sure, where's your credit at? What type of debt, what does your debt load look like? What is your capacity? In other words, what can you handle in terms of a mortgage, right? You may want to pay or buy this $200,000, $250,000, $500,000 home, but you have 3 cars, student loans, 5, 6 credit cards. We need to step back and start having that conversation to see what you're ready for. And it's our job to counsel you to get you ready for that. And the last, okay. And the last thing is just talk about where your assets are. What money do you have? Do you have money to put down? If you don't, we start talking about particular products that may be able to get you in with no money down, or if you want to put 20% down, we talk about that. Or do you want to put down 5% and use the other money to invest? So
just really quick, it just hit me what you two on the panel. How many people have you gotten houses or funded a mortgage who initially said, I can't afford a house, I don't want to get a house? Just curious of the amount of people who don't even think that they qualify, and you have to walk them through that. What percentage of that is your time?
I mean, I would say there's a lot. There's a lot of people that don't think that they can qualify. I did a housing counseling seminar about 2 months ago. This lady came in. I think she was about 61 years old. And she came in the room and she said, I just want to come and get the information, but I want to buy a house. And nobody ever told me I can buy a house. And I said, so what do you do? She said, I work in the cafeteria. And she said, I was never told I can buy a house. She never really thought about it until we had that seminar. And I said, I got my laptop here if you want to sit down and have a conversation. This lady had a 750 credit score, had about $10,000 in the bank, and had a steady job, and she had other Social Security benefits on top of her job. This lady came in that day, not thinking she could qualify, and was able to walk out with a $200,000 approval for a home. This lady's 61 years old. Nobody ever told her she could buy. Now she's on the road to generational wealth. You said it doesn't matter what time you start, it's the fact that you just start, right?
And I'll say majority as well. I actually had a conversation with a gentleman last night who's actually an engineer, and he's younger and he's getting married. And I was like, "So are you ready to buy your house?" And there was a lot of hesitation. He's like, "Oh, I'm going to pay for a wedding first." And I'm like, "But do you understand the leverage of being able to purchase a home even before putting your money towards a wedding? Because that's your down payment." And he's like, "Oh, I don't have enough." I'm like, "Your wedding money is your down. What are you not understanding about this?" I'm like, "Did I make it any more clear about the importance of making sure that you manage your finances correctly, especially when making those big steps?" And then also you getting married. Make sure that before you get married, the wife that you're being married to is not going to decrease your credit. Like, just make sure that you're setting yourself up in the right ways. But I would say majority of people do not believe that it's possible to own or purchase a home because they are not familiar with the steps in the process. So that's why creating that environment and that space to be like, you can do it and you can do it too, and I will walk with you every step of the way, helps create that comfort level for people to know, like, okay, I can get to the finish line. Because I'd say at least 2/3 of people do not believe that they can honestly afford a home. And that's the reason why our rentals are the way that they are now. Lack of faith and lack of resources and lack of, again, people don't even know that you don't have to pay an agent. You know, the seller's agent pays the agent. Most people on the buyer side, they're like, "Oh, you're too expensive for me." And I'm like, "What do you mean? This is a service that I provide that you don't even have to pay for. So why not take my knowledge, my information, my resources?" That's another thing is our culture. What I will say is, as a minority culture, we're the main ones who turn away from help and resources when it's literally handed to you. So if people are coming to you wanting to give you the knowledge in real estate as to how to buy a house, why not go for it? Everything in life is risk. If you want wealth, it's going to take risk. And in order to get to the new level, you're going to have to equip yourself with what it takes mentally to take those risks to succeed. Because it just baffles me to have those conversations and be like, you prefer to put $20,000 towards a wedding right now versus making sure you secure a home? But those conversations need to be had, So, yeah.
So we're going to segue. One of the most important things in all the baseline, Tiffany's not going to be working with you if you don't have a credit score to get a home. Damien is going to have to go through your credit file to ensure that you can qualify, and part of that is with your credit. And so I want to take this time to introduce Anthony Craig Perry, who is the credit guru.
Thanks for having me, everybody. Glad to be here. And credit is real important. Even when I didn't even believe in credit from the start, I own a credit company. I'm Anthony Craig Perry. I own a credit company called Credit Flow Professionals. Getting into credit, I never believed in credit, and I was like a naysayer myself. Like, I figured, like, if you mess up your credit, you was done, you shot. There's nothing you can do about it, because coming from my family, my mom, she just always just say, if you don't have money for it, you can't afford it. And I was like, I wonder just how people get like accumulate like businesses and do stuff, because there's a lot of working that you got to do and a lot of saving you got to do. Like, I went on a restaurant, so I guess I got to work with somebody just give me a restaurant. I inherited from my family. And so I never really just had like a full understanding of credit. And so I kind of like got myself in situations and just got older and basically just had to figure it out, part of that coming from, I guess, my background. Once again, my mom and dad was married, but then they got a divorce. So at 6 years old, pretty much I come from a single family, part of my mom and I have 6 siblings, that was in the household. So I had 6 siblings in the household. And basically, we just had to pretty much learn how to do things on our own, as far as like work hard for things. And that was just that aspect of like, it comes from like a lack of knowledge, because as far as it was passing my mom, it's like you just had to work for everything, work hard for it, and just save up for it. And if you couldn't afford it at the time, then it wasn't meant for you. That was the whole thing. Like, that's not for you, so through life and through time, I just feel like I needed to do things different as far as learning about things different. So I got introduced to credit just by accident. A guy was just bothering me, coming to my gym, because I used to be a personal trainer. So he used to always bother me about, hey, your clients need credit, you need help with credit. And he
need to introduce to your clients. I'm like, nah, we're talking about meal prep, diet plans and working out. Everything physical. So it had nothing to do with financial, literacy or financial planning. So one day I just offered it to my boot camp class, and then he came like, hey, is the guy good? Is he really going to do everything or see everything off his credit report, that I need? Because I have a lot of progress ways to make it now. And so he actually did, I referred to this out, and he actually did what he was supposed to, that I was getting referrals. And so I got more referrals that was paying me more than I was doing in my personal training in my studio. So I was like, it was a good idea. And then at the time, I didn't really understand it. So at the time, it was like a realtor that came to me and was like, hey, I need you to come to a home buy seminar with me. Could you help me? And I didn't really know too much about credit at the time, so I called the guy and said, hey, I need you to come help me. I got a home buy seminar. I got this realtor that, want to, got clients with me, he's good business. He's like, man, I can't do all that, You want to do that on your own. And I'm like, you don't got me into credit. So I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I kind of like Google a lot of stuff, like instantly, I'm like, man, I can't stand up because I told I'll be there. I have my people with me. And from there, I just had to, express myself with knowledge, which was first, I felt like I always thought that it didn't work. So I saw it work, with this one guy. So from there, it was my journey and just meeting different people and different, ventures. And then I ended up meeting lenders, which is like Microsoft basically. As far as what he does is send clients to me, that doesn't have, adequate credit, as far as need things, they can't get approved basically. And so it's the same thing Amy does as well. So pretty much like I'm a tutor, like a good, tutor for the team as far as like get people ready. And so a lot of people, they feel discouraged because once you go to Mike, he's like, hey, I can't get you pre-approved, you have to get your stores up, for whichever purchase point that you're trying to do, or whatever you want to buy. You don't have all the money down, like you said, you gotta have money, you don't have enough money for that purchase. You got to base it on your credit. So how much credit do you have? Like, where your stores at? What would you do for you? And so my role in this whole thing is on trying to educate you on credit, and how leverage other people's money and leverage that for your family. Pretty much that's what I'm here today.
Appreciate that. So one of the questions, I want to ask is, everybody's heard of FICO, right? All right. And so with FICO, what does FICO mean?
FICO, to me, it just means hard like you said me, we're just about to put it in three parts, like what you're gonna get approved.
Then with FICO, there's weighted averages, and so with that, can you break down what those components are, and get that they make as far as you get credit?
Yeah. So like credit usage is worth like 15%. That's like a pie. Everything's on a pie like 1%. So like with the credit usage, is counts to 15%. Everything we do. As far as 35% is like on-time payments, and as far as the new credit, that's 10%. Then you got like 30% like 30%, as far as like credit hits, as far as like you have revolving lines of credit, installments, as far as like installments is anything like a loan, as far as like house note, partner, and like everything else is revolving, which is your credit card. And so having that mixed together, is accumulated. And just even with like the FICO score, you have different scores, from Vantage scores, FICO scores, you have the mortgage scores, you have the auto score. And all these things accumulate on different systems. And like a common question is like, which is my real score? Because like when you go to someone like, well, Credit Karma says this, well, my FICO says that. Well, I'm looking at, the farms like, everybody has different scores, like different advantages, and like you can have FICO 8, FICO 9, FICO 10, and then all of them are totally different. And so, but different institutions, like financial institutions, use different scores for different reasons. Like you might have to have more payment history because they want to see if you really want these payments long term and short term. So basically, it's FICO.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen situations, and somebody has $1,000 credit limit, and I try to keep it really simple here. And we need to keep it simple when we're talking about credit, because if you have $1,000 limit, okay, and you have $900, you're right, or you maybe be above the limit. That can drive your scores down 30 or 40 points. Not that you have to always be, right? A lot of people come to me all the time that, you know, they've never missed a payment, but their score is 620, 610. They may have 5 different credit cards, but all of them are maxed out, right? Talking to this man, dropping it down to 30% or below, brought him up 60, 70 points, right? So that could be the difference in getting qualified or not, or paying thousands of dollars more if your credit score is low. So it's super important that we kind of understand we don't need, you know, we don't need a JCPenney's, Sears, you know I'm old, right? JCPenney's, Macy's, all. My mom had like 7 different credit cards. I said, Mom, let's just get one department store card and maybe 2 other small credit cards and keep them as low as possible. It's key that we understand that, because again, it could be the difference in either getting qualified or not, paying thousands of dollars more.
So questions, if we talk about credit score, we're gonna come to that, and I have a question for Damien. What is the lowest credit score you could have in order to qualify for a mortgage?
You have down 500. 500. Yeah, so I have people all the time that will come to me and say, my credit's not good, so I don't know what that means, right? So you got to look at the scenario, right? So FHA, VA, some other government-backed programs they don't care about score. A lot of times they look at your assets, they look at the length of time you've been on your job, and we go through the system and see if it comes back approved. Now you may have to put down a little bit more with the lower score, but it's 500 is what we see.
So, for Anthony, what do you see when you're helping people restore or build their credit? What are some of the common things you see on the credit that can be easily removed?
Like medical bills could be removed easy because of HIPAA law. Like it's not supposed to report it, but you always say, like, I have all these medical collections, you know, I have $2,000. I'm not going to get rid of it. I'm not going to get a house. So once again, like we disturbed, but it's a lack of knowledge. And like if we, you know, take on the knowledge and just like understand what's going on. Because credit is a sensitive subject, you know, talk about this. It's not like everything. Like, what's your credit score? What's going on with mine? It's like, nah, I'm good. I have good credit. I'm all right. I'm good. Like the problem. But just, I always just educate them, tell me just check the report, like daily, you know, to see what you have on it. And it's like a lot of things, just like you said, you can be like maxed out 100%. Like I pay all my bills on time, you got a little score. And just pay another 30%. You know, a lot of times you can just pay another 30% of it, just 10 or 5 to 10%, you know, get like the best results in your credit score. And that's basically like a lot.
It's not like you pay it down and you gotta wait 6 or 7 months. You pay it down, and next cycle.
And when you're thinking that you're like so far away, but you're like so close. And it's just like little things that you can do. And, you know, like even going to the bank in a secure card or something like that, because you don't have enough credit, you know. And so a lot of people say, well, I don't know what to do, you know, but it's like in the program. That's why I'm proud to be a part of this. Just, you know, to educate you on that side of, you know, what we do, you know, part like this. Nobody ever gave it to me. I just had my experience. You know, just let life happen. Figure it out. You know, we here to help, and I'm here to help.
I like to say something from the real estate and realtor perspective. Please, when you're trying to purchase a house and you go under contract, don't use your credit cards. Please.
So why is that? So talk about, you know, you got the contract on the house, y'all found a home. What are the do's and don'ts so that folks will know what to do and not to do, you know, in buying that home purchase process?
I mean, people get so excited and they're ready to go buy their furniture and they're ready to go buy their fridge and open up all these new accounts and celebrate their new house. Until that house is yours, you do not move, you do not make unwise financial decisions through that waiting period, because purchasing a home is a waiting period. Whether it takes 30 days for your loan to fund, whatever it may be, you have to protect your finances and protect your accounts. Therefore, it's not a hard job on your lenders to make sure that they're cleaning up after you for all of your ridiculous expenses, and just understanding home ownership comes with responsibility. And if you can't simply have the responsibility that it takes to maintain your credit in 30 days, that's kind of a red flag, and just kind of being very intentional with that. That's why we guys were on the conversation of just credit in general. I've had plenty of clients that when they get, even though I tell them multiple times, and I also tell my lenders, can you reiterate to them, do not use their credit card. And then they come up short at the end of the day, and now we're delaying our close. Now they risk the potential to even be able to purchase a home because that one little expense of $1.50 on a credit card that you were not supposed to do will completely deter your entire home ownership journey. So just being very wise when it comes to your financial situations when you are looking to put money up for a home.
So Anthony, question for you. So if I come to you and I need, my credit is, I don't have any debt, anything like that. So it's not like it's just terrible. What are some things that you can do and help me to raise that credit score? Because I think some of the things that we may not know about, the higher your credit score, the more funding that's going to be out there for you. And so what are some things that I can do, such as inquiries, removing inquiries, things of that nature?
It's like a lot of times you go to the dealership, you get like a car, they will swing credit like one time, they have like 15, 20 acres on it, but they're trying to find like the best rate, depending on what the score is, and depends on what you said that you're trying to purchase. We're just trying to pay money, like on your money, pay the bigger car. And so they'll just shop you around with different things and different things, but you can have these inquiries to go easily, like call the credit bureau, just actually say, hey, these are unauthorized, that I didn't ask for. It's only supposed to be around one time. And now I have like 20 acres on it, they 5 points a piece, so that's like 100 points. And sometimes it's spread around like all 3 credit bureaus, so you want to see like this off 100 point, decrease. And like even to follow with that, as far as like purchasing cars, let's just talk about cars, like when you might be on a contract for a loan or something, then you purchase a car because you're happy about getting this house, like you were saying, then you can't afford a house again because guess what, they got to do debt. And so all those things is things to look out for, like when you're going through the home process and whatnot, and you get pre-approved, and you already approved, and you didn't close yet, but you wait to get closed, but then you purchase the time that you go and pull your credit again, now your score to drop. So now you need more money to get on far as like make this purchase. So,
With the car situation, I've actually had a client purchase a car secretly while they were under contract, and I actually fronted them my commission because I felt for them. I didn't know that they purchased a car, but when I pulled up to their house the day after they closed, they had a brand new Jeep sitting in the parking lot after giving them my commission because my heart was just like, oh my gosh, like what's happening with their credit? Even the lender could not figure out that they bought a car. The lender called me and was like, hey, did you know that this man bought a brand new car throughout this process and took our money? And I was like, wow. So please just be considerate of your expenses in the time of purchasing your house and understand that taking from others is not going to benefit you in the home ownership journey as well. But it happens more often than not. So that's the reason why I reiterate.
One of the things that when we talk about some financial literacy things, we also want to talk about wealth building. And part of that is life insurance. A lot of times we think life insurance is for when someone passes away, someone dies and they leave some money behind health insurance policy, life insurance policy. So, I've asked Damon and Robert, to talk about life insurance because I always say it's life because you want to be able to utilize it while you're living. And so can you dig a little bit deeper into the life insurance?
Yeah, so I'll kick this off. Right. So before we get into the life insurance component, everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So let me back up. So before we get into life insurance, let's get into the basic components of insurance. Let's talk about the because growing up, I grew up the last of 11, and we always tried to get put toothpaste back in the tooth after without. What I mean by that is you get in a car accident, you need insurance. Guess what? Can't get it. So often we're trying to save a dollar, right? Which actually does not really taste. So it's really important that you have a proper insurance on your hazard insurance, your home insurance, your auto insurance. And I have some people walk up to me and say, home insurance doesn't apply to me, I'm renting. It's home rental insurance. Okay, and actually it's one of the best insurance out there. And you can get it dirt cheap with it.
Now, auto insurance would probably be your most expensive, but it's your most needed. And, I talk about that when you talk about building wealth. I don't know a person that has built wealth that does not have a sustainable amount of insurance in front of them to protect them. More so than my legal team, more so than anything. I'll give you an example. I own hundreds of properties. So my legal team is not me. One action on any property that we've ever been sued on, we pass it to our insurance company. 90% of the time, an insurance company is worried about what? Protecting you that money for those things. Let me give you another example. If you don't own insurance, you're inviting me over to your house party, you're barbecuing and having a good time. I fall and bump my head. I turn and call you on Monday morning. Guess who's going to be footing that bill that I hit you with in my city? An innocent little party. So you have to understand the value of insurance. I know it's a tough check to write, but it has a lot of protection pieces there for you. Don't overlook that. Don't put that oversight there. Insurance is very, very important, whether it's auto, home, whatever it may be. Renters insurance. It's not like the warranty program you get at Best Buy, which is worthless. This is something that's very impactful. Then it goes to the other component of life insurance, and we utilize that a lot. And Rob, I know you're going to get that for us, but life insurance is not about death. It's about life. And Rob, we're going to talk about that. So we're going to make that up. Yeah, so I mean, when you look at it, Rob got me into it years ago. I don't do funding and banking institutions on a regular basis. I probably do about 50% of my funding for all my investments through banking institutions. So I get what I call career financing. One of the things I've done is I've invested into what we call whole life policies. With that, I pay myself. And if I need a loan, I evaluate those opportunities, and I give that loan to myself. And I pay the interest back, and I make that interest versus the bank making that 10 to 12% interest off of it. I get that interest personally into my account. And my value builds up year over year over year. That's all the own person's thing. And everyone can do it. You don't have to go and do $500,000. You can go into some financial policy for very short, small amounts. And that's where it becomes finding the right team of people to go around you. And I'm huge on that. I'm trying to put the horse back in the stable before we get to the investment side of it, because that's really where I operate at. But making sure you have the right group of people around you, you have to consistently rearrange. I like to use the word rearrange versus the word fire, because I'll give you an example. I look at Anthony. Before I met Anthony, I was using someone else for credit building. Before I had Andy, I maybe used someone else on the mortgage broking side, right? But I had to be wise enough to understand when they were no longer good for what my values and mission and drive was with what I was doing. So it's important that you have the right accounting. You're not just going to H&R Block. Okay? And I say that because I used to go to H&R Block and say, I'm just going to pay my taxes down here. But that's where I was losing most of my money. All right? And I'll say that again, that's where I was losing most of my money. So if I made $50,000 in salary and I paid 20% of that in taxes versus the guy that made $50,000 and paid 0% of taxes legally, who made the most money? So make sure you have the right team around you. But let me get back to Bull Life. Put that horse back in the stable. We'll get back to Bull Life.
Yeah, and right before I jump into the whole life, let me just say, thank you to one part here. It's very interesting for me when I think about it. I manage $50 million of assets, and looking at things, we were really 5 of you guys. I thought about those. Like, really, each one of you do represent about 10 million of that 50 million piece. Because when I sold Microsoft, I don't have to take my money and figure out what to do with it, because I have leverage right here. If I got my credit man, my finance man, and I have my real estate battle, I can just say, listen, here you go. This is what I'm looking for. As Tiffany said, she's using on my risk appetite, what I'm looking for, what type of returns I want to make, which we talk about all the time. That's what wealth is. Wealth is not how do I find money. As a matter of fact, we talk about it a lot. Don't chase money, chase opportunity. And really, none of this stuff today that we talk about matters if we don't start with mindset. I spent $75 a month on minimum in 2016 just on Starbucks. on $75 a month on that. I took the same $75 and invested in learning how to program, computer programming, self-taught online, and that turned into $160,000 salary in 8 months. I know so many people with a little bit of money who goes out and get the most stuff. Someone asked me, well, Robert, what do you call money? And I always tell them all the time, money is just a tool. It's just simply a tool. I was talking to a young man last night, and we had, 2 nights ago, we had a conference, and he was valeting our cars. And he came up to me and he said, well, you know, I was telling him we was doing this networking event. He said, you know, the root of money, the root of the love of money is the root of all evil. And I was like, why are you telling me this? And he said, because money is evil. That's what he said to me. Says the guy who's parking the car, right? So my whole thing to him was, when you hear that verse, Mike and I both we went to seminary school. And so when you hear that verse, the reason why Christ says, for the love of money, not money is root of all things, but the love of money, is because money is equated in the mind of the poor man thinking stuff. Money is stuff to me. But what he's really saying is for the love of stuff, you'll do anything. And that's what makes you do evil. It's not money that's evil. It's money is how I get the stuff, and since I love stuff, I will do evil for stuff. But if money is a tool, Matthew 10 says the axe is at the root of the tree, and any tree that does not bear good fruit will be cut down and thrown into the fire. So the reality of it is if money is seen like the axe, which is a tool, and you don't see money as stuff, and you see it as a tool, then you're not going to be committing crimes and all the other stuff, the evil stuff that Christ was trying to say. Because the whole point of Christ saying it is because the rich man did all the good stuff. He said, okay, well, then go sell everything you have, give it to the poor. Not because Christ required you to give it all to the poor, because he recognized even though you do good deeds that you say is servant, you wasn't doing it with the right mindset. You're doing it for the praise, you're not doing it for the outcome of the impact. And so my challenge to you guys is you have to make sure that you start with the mindset. The first $1 million that I made was way, way harder than the next 10 million altogether. The next 10 million was easier than the first 10 million, because here's what happens. When you get your credit right and you get a house, Tiffany will call and say, oh, Robert, I got some more land. It's so much easier for people to want to give you more stuff and give you more loans because you're faithful over the first thing. So what you got to do is just get your foot in the door. So just let me close on this whole life insurance. As my guys know, I have 10 policies. Each one of them with $100,000 of cash in. So I go get $1 million policy, life insurance policy, by the way, which only cost me $150 a month. That's $1 million. Something happened to me, my children's did. So I pump money into this life insurance policy. 90% of whatever I put in goes right to cash. So it's like a checking account. 10% goes to pay for the life insurance policy. Now I want to go and purchase a house, and Tiffany says, "Where's that down payment?" I can go to my life insurance policy. I don't withdraw it because I'm guaranteed 6% on my money. So what I do is I borrow against the money. I borrow against it from the insurance company. The difference though is I don't have to worry about the bank, worry about that because it's not on my credit, and I don't have to pay the loan back. What will happen is if I borrow $100,000 to buy a big piece of property, and I'm not going to get a loan, I'm not going to get a bill in mail. So what's going to happen is if I die, my dependents will get only $900,000 because they'll pay back the loan. So when we thought about this, it was like, okay, so I go to a bank, I put my money in the bank. The bank can take $100,000 that I have, and it's called fractional reserve lending. They literally can take 10 times of what they have in the bank and lend it out to other people. And you guys know the number one thing that banks do with their money? What is that? 90% of what banks do with their money is by whole life policy. So they lend out 10% to us. They give us a 1% or less interest on our savings. And then they loan us a car, house, etc., up to 7, 8, 10%. And then the credit card can be up to 35%. And then what they do is with the other 90%, guess what they do? They go get a whole life policy for $1 million, just like I'm doing, on every executive and every employee in that company. And guess what? If the employee dies, that's why some of you guys may notice that if you die, your company will say, we're going to automatically give you $10,000 accidental death insurance. That's because they get $990,000 from you and you don't know it. So if I can take my money and put it in the bank in a whole life, borrow against it, and never have to pay it back, and I'm still accumulating 6%. I take that same money, I give it to Tiffany to go get me a house. She go get me a house, and then I go get a renter who pays back the loan. The first thing I say to myself is, how much would I have paid if I had to borrow from the bank? If it's 7%, 5%, etc., then what I end up doing is I pay myself back that amount of money. So now instead of going to the bank, it comes to me. So now I own the house. I'm making all the interest from the money. I can pay it whenever I want to. And then once I pay myself back, guess what I do? I say, hey, tip that another house. And you just keep the effect going. So that's what we mean by building wealth and using policies, the living benefit policies, to be your own bank. If you don't own your lifestyle, somebody else will.
Yeah, you're preaching over here. You're preaching.
Good stuff, Doc. Good stuff.
I'll just say one more thing. I had something there, so I'm like, say something to me. I just get some money from them. I'm like, spread the whole thing. I mean, heard that. So the truth is. And as I got older and I started to get better with money, that's advice ever out there. So what I mean by that, I have a strategy that I do now in which I spend the money before I get it. I have a detailed plan that up today, if you walk to me, up to me and said, hey, come on, here's $1,000. I can tell you everywhere that $1,000 is going to go. And the moment it's not going to go. Give you an example. I know that 60% is going to go towards what I call my expenses. 30% is going to go towards my investment. I don't believe in savings account. I have a double investment account. That money is automatically going to get dispersed that way. Therefore, I will never have the ability to be tempted to go buy a new iPhone, although I just got the new iPhone. You know where I'm going? So I think you take that as spend your money before you give. You have to have a plan, you have to have a strategy. And sometimes we worry so much about getting more. I was richer than I ever was when I had less. Because I had more money, it's just I couldn't track my money. I didn't do a weekly evaluation of my finances to see how much I got going out versus how much I got going in. So you kind of need to know where you're at now, because when you get more money, your problem just expands and gets worse. So if you have spending habit now, it's going to get worse the more money you get. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, what they say is money doesn't change you. Money just shows you who you really are. So whatever you are, if you get a lot of money, you're going to get a lot of what you're going to do that. We use this term opportunity cost. And we say all the time, we can invest $10,000 into an index fund over the stock market that gave us 10% on our return. In 5 years, we've now taken that $10,000 and turned it to $15,000. So my son comes to me and says, "Yeah, I want to buy this Gucci shirt." And I say, "What's the opportunity cost?" So he already knows that what I'm looking for is not that the shirt costs $1,000. The shirt costs $1,000 plus all the interest you could have gained if you had to put it in the stock market. So the shirt actually costs you $5,000. So now you need to understand the long term, because what we do is we justify our short term expenses because we don't think long term. Most people challenges, the reason they don't have wealth minus mindset and access is because they make every decision based on their past instead of based on their future. If I want to be a millionaire, then I make millionaire decisions. But what happens is, I got $1,000. I'll never forget when Hurricane Katrina happened. I was at church. We had all these people flood us from Louisiana. I was just so moved by the people. And my pastor said, "Stand up if you want to open up your house to families and et cetera." All of us stood up and we started taking in these families. It was a beautiful thing, no charge. I think the Lord will bless me. I was doing all that good stuff. And then this family gets this big check to help them recover from FEMA. And everybody came. I swear for God, everybody came the next day with gold teeth and gold chain. There was no, I was like, "So where y'all moving out?" Like, trying to get an apartment or get a house or something. Typically, I give you a house and lay down payment. They was everybody. And I was like, wow. And then when I told them, I said, "Guys, that's a bad decision." Everybody goes back, "Well, my past. I've been through this. We validate everything we do based on past. But the truth is, what gives you the capacity to grow is thinking about your future. So it doesn't matter what you've been through, it's where you want to go. And if you tell me where you want to go, when I do executive coaching, I say, "I don't really care what you've been through. Just tell me where you want to go, and let's make decisions based on it."
And that is called delayed gratification. Delaying what you want right now for your future of what you want to come. And so, is this good information for y'all? You know, your quiet good information? Because you're gonna have an opportunity in order to ask questions. Because there might be specific questions that you want answers to, that you want to say, "You know what, dig a little bit deeper into what you said." So definitely don't be shy when it's time for those questions. One of the things that the panel mentioned was to have a team. And so it doesn't matter right now if you can afford a team. And what I mean by that is that this came for free. You have a real estate agent right here. You have a mortgage lender right here. You have a credit specialist right here. You have an investor right here. And you have another investor in which he invests in other things in which Everyone up here is investing in other things besides what they work for. And so you want to diversify yourself. Another thing that you want to have on your team is a lawyer. I have mine right here in the back right here. And so you want to have a lawyer on your team. You want to make sure men and women, especially of color, we do not go to the doctor. Our men, we're speaking of enough. Women as well, even though women go at a high clip. So what you want to make sure is that you also have your doctor on your team. You want to make sure that if you go to battle with someone, we have athletes here, we have people who play, we have people who watch and spectate it. You want to go to war with the best team possible. If you're going to play fantasy football, you're going to draft the best team possible. And so you want to make sure that if that's something you don't want to play with your life, you want to make sure I have every aspect covered, and then also your team means the people you put around you as your friends. What are your friends adding to your life? And then better yet, what are you adding to your friends' life? What are you adding to your family's life? And if you find that you are more of a liability than an asset, number one, you need to check yourself. And then number two, you need to start deleting those liabilities, that are around you. Because it's not that they're not good people. It's just sometimes everybody can't go where you're trying to go. And so you want to make sure that as you are climbing and ascending, you want to pull some people back with you, but you want to make sure that you can carry weight. A lot of times we're carrying weight and we're not equipped in order to pull that weight. So we want to make sure that this information is going to help you start picking up weights and get stronger, whether it's financially, whether it's mentally, whether it's spiritually, whether it's physically. We want to make sure that you're covered from that perspective. And so I will open it up to you all. We have definitely more questions and more things to talk about. But does anyone have any questions? Yes, sir. I get the mic.
Speak loud, can you hear me? I can understand. You just mentioned about delayed gratification.
Yeah.
What do you do to combat that when people have a microwave mindset?
Woo. Again, part of this. Go ahead. You about to say something.
So, you're right. So I think one of the issues in our community is consistently punish ourselves and then superficially reward ourselves. And what I mean by that is work harder sometimes than we should in situations. And when we get that paycheck on Friday, you say, well, I worked hard this week, which you did. And you go take that credit card and go spend. And you're going to have that good time for that 30 minutes or that one day. But what you're doing now you got to work harder again just to go back and have that moment. So I think sometimes we have to stop a little bit longer and really identify what is the true reward we need for ourselves. You can't reward yourself with everything. You have to pick something and go there. And it goes back to the iPhone mentality again. I know people that got the iPhone 13 and 14 came out the next day to try to go get that. So if you're constantly rewarding yourself, you're consistently punishing yourself.
And let me just say, it goes back to if you make decisions based on thinking about the future, then you stop thinking like that. Because what happens is now you recognize what gets you excited, what gives you the real gratification, is that the decisions I'm making today, the next day, is towards that thing that I see at the end. It's when you look back when you worked out just today that you can just go in the microwave and go because now you're just satisfying what today on what yesterday gives you. Instead of, I could go buy this, but I'm going to make this deposit. If I make this deposit, it's $1 closer to my $1 million I'm trying to get to. So the $1 million is what drives the $1 behavior. So you got to look forward and not back. That's why the mindset, we have what we call 4 pillars, I'm sure we'll talk about. But the first one is mindset. You got to have the right mindset. Then you got to have the right education. And then you can make the investments that you need. And then you leverage those investments. And for me, if there's nothing else you get from us today, that's the key thing, is leverage. I can leverage my knowledge, my education, my resources, etc. But I can also leverage these people's knowledge, education, and resources. I never forget when I had $300,000. I called B up. I said, I'm about to go buy this house cash, and I'm going to rent it out, and I'm going to have this money for the rest of my life. And he's like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Right? And he said, why would you go buy one house when you could go take $10,000, go buy 10, 20, 30 houses and live them all out? Only good idea you have that. But the point of it, that's a mindset thing. And you know what that means? As successful as I am, I never said to him, oh, you can't tell me I got more money or I did this on successful. I said, you know what, that's right. You got to be humble in the business. You got to be humble, period. But it's through that humility of understanding my brother had knowledge in a different perspective that I was willing to receive. It helped me. So just like I said, surround yourself with people who come from a different angle, who subject matter experts. I can't sit up here and say I know any of those things better than any of these people here, even though I leverage all three of them. And so it's just about the right mindset and the right humility and asking questions.
Why do I have that mindset? You know what I mean? And because it came from somewhere. So what is the root of that cause? Because if you have bad roots, then of course the tree is going to die. And so I'll challenge you or whoever, that question is, okay, so let me figure that out. What books are you reading to help transform that mind? Because you have a transformation of that mind. It needs to be renewed because you can't be thinking, living the same way and think you're going to get a different result. Because it's crazy, you're insane. And so, okay, so what's the information that I am learning in order to utilize that as a tool in order to change? So what books? I go to church all day, but if I'm not utilizing the information that I'm getting, it's not going to do me any good. I'm going to be the same person. You're talking about a metaphysical, spiritual change that has to happen, and that means, one, I'm taking in more information that I need to change what I'm doing right now. And once you start taking that information, you say, okay, now I'm identifying those areas that I need to grow. So what opportunities am I looking at? What things am I trying to do right now in order to help me take that step? It's steps to this. It's not going to happen overnight. Some people win the lottery, but that's 1 in 100 million. So what am I doing right now? What are those steps? Go ahead. Sound like you want to say something.
No. When you're asking like books, like one of the things, because I'm sitting there, and my 6-year-old twins walk to me, yeah, I want some Jordans. They got the Jordans. However, my older children, I started teaching them, and like one of the books I referred to, like you said, what they're reading and whatnot, what we're taking in, Richest Man in Babylon. Start them off there, so that way they understand. Okay, this dollar you spend today, or this dollar you make, for you. So what you're saying, I'm definitely tracking, but a lot of this it's been instilled in us to operate from a position of lack, where we try to buy our wealth. We say wealth is silent. We want to be rich and loud. That's how it is.
So Mike Tyson said one of the most probably Mike Tyson crazy good. But he said one of the most profound things, and another aspect that you have to add to that is discipline. And he said, discipline is doing the thing that you hate to do and acting like you love it. And so that very thing that, no, I want to go spend money too, you know what I mean? But it's the discipline to say, I know I need to do something else with that money in order to get where I want to go. Because now, I wasn't thinking at 20 like I am at 46. The reason being is that I'm close to retirement now, and receiving Social Security checks. So I'm like, mindset has to shift. But how many people that we know that are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and are not in position, in order to make that happen? And part of it is our mindsets that we carried on from the beginning, and not changing it and not doing it. So somebody else. Yeah.
I was just gonna add, because we spoke about books and things like that. It's being realistic. Because we live in a place right now where the culture is focused on instant gratification, which is completely the opposite of delayed gratification. We see things that we believe are in our reach, but it really isn't. Social media, things like that, completely allow you to think like, how did they do that so quickly? But you don't see the pruning and the suffering and the trial and tribulation because we're not going to put that out there. Because at the end of the day, we only glorify what looks good. So what I would say is, when it comes to the number one plug, I always go to the Bible because it shows you what life is going to be like, which is the suffering, the pruning season, the trial and the tribulation that we must endure in order to build the kingdom that we're called to build. But when I say that, I also say that with the knowledge of suffering, understanding that it takes people around you to continue to speak that life into you. That's why community is big. Because when you're isolated, you think that it can happen overnight and you're not being realistic with yourself, and people aren't being realistic about their journey. And that's what limits people's perspective to be like, I can do it too. So that's why beyond anything else, just surround yourself with people who will be vulnerable enough to be like, hey, this is what I went through and this is how I got here. When you develop a diamond, it takes precedence. When you develop the finest wines, it's a process. Everything takes a process, but people are so caught up on the destination that they fail to realize the journey that it takes to get to the destination. But the appreciation and the contentment in the journey is what's going to allow you to be able to appreciate and value the wealth and the things that you guys, are able to accumulate through the years. Because the worst thing is you're so frustrated in your journey when you get it, it's what's next. So you're always forever in contempt with what's going on in your life. So I would just say be realistic about the difference between instant gratification and delayed gratification. The idea that we do live in a culture of meism, where it's all about me, where that's where we put ourselves in isolation and limit our abilities to scale our business in the way that we do, or scale our knowledge. Because everybody here, I can tell you every podcast, every book, but it takes away from the one book that tells you every structure and every lesson in your life and how to go about life. Understanding it's a day-by-day journey, just like Robert was saying. Maybe it is a Sunday and people just have to go back to the source and the foundation to know, okay, this is how I'm supposed to live my life, and also knowing that not everything is meant for everybody. So the things that you're seeking may not even be your calling. So making sure that you're aligned with the purpose and the calling that God has for your life, or you'll be running like a hamster in a hamster wheel, chasing wealth all your life, when all you had to do was focus on your family. So, just being realistic at the end of the day when it comes to wealth building, when it comes to instant gratification, delayed gratification, and just your mental health and your perspective. Because life is about perspective. The more healthy your perspective is, the more healthy your life is.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you, brother, for the question, and thank you for being a single dad. I just want to give you big ups for that, man. So thank you. One of the things I will say is that you got to humble yourself, right? I feel like because of my education, sometimes I notice that. But literally, the conversations that I have, talking about microwave society generation, is making sure that you're around people. And we talked about this, right? The conversation, check the conversation that you're having. I am intentional. I make sure my kids are intentional about the conversations that they're having and listening. Is this growing? Literally, when we sit down and have dinner, we literally have dinners and we're talking about ideas. Okay, this didn't start just last year. This started years ago. These are ideas, right? So again, you got kids. I'm talking about telling your children, check the conversations and humble yourself, because you don't know all. IG is not going to tell you everything. Talk to my son, TikTok tells him everything. It informs him, right? I'm like, dude, humble yourself. Get around people that know a little bit more with the information. So again, check the conversations, get around people. And I can't stress that enough. Financial literacy, Nick, we talk, the attorney in the back. I'm asking this questions all the time. That takes being humble, right? It takes being humble. Asking Nejan, asking Mike, my brother, asking him questions, and humbling himself. So I just want to make sure that we get that out there. And again, big up to you.
Yeah, I just want to put you back to the single that I echo that as well. I think the best book is yourself. As Tiffany said, best book is the Bible, but the best way to show that. When Tiffany first came in, I gave her a little hard time. I said, "So what are you doing? I need to make you some money." And she said, "Yeah, well, where's the money? Because faith without works is dead." Like, it brings me back to I once, when I was in seminary school, I had to debate a gentleman on that very passage, and he was debating that it's about the works, and I was debating it was about the faith. And what we learned was it was about faith that works. It's not faith or works. So if it's faith that works, then again, it's rooted in first understanding the faith piece. Because if that's the faith piece, it's going to check how you have conversations, how you show up, and what you do. And then as a parent, guess what? You may not be able to give your kids this big mention and all these things, but if they just see you look at a bank statement that says, "Hey, I put $5 there. I only make 15, but guess what? 5 of them I'm saving." And they start seeing these habits. Then when they get $50,000, they're going to do the same habits, but they can do it at a higher level. And then the grandkids can do it at the same level. And that's why, again, that we pass away and we got those life insurance policies, we transfer that wealth to our children, or we've already instilled them with the tool for mindset and the character that's necessary for them to make sure that their children and great-grandchildren is going to continue to do and just be better off. But that all starts with that modeling of your faith, but showing them how that faith works.
It's just to go off of like books and mindset. I love that you said the Bible. Other than one for each of y'all, is there one book that made the most impact or helped you change your mindset?
Absolutely.
Not just one.
I'll start it off real quick, because lots of them, but the number one book for me was called The Mind of the Millionaire. And that's why you can keep it in the word mindset. That book was not about how to make money. That book was how people think who makes money. And that was the most powerful book. So how the Mind of the Millionaire was probably the most impactful.
It was several. That's one by that guy. Very short book, but very powerful. It's important. And those principles, because you have to have a foundation. We're going to talk about this, but you have to have a foundation in which you're going to live your life. And you have to have a foundation in which, you know, a lot of the books that you read expound from the Bible. But there's principles a lot of that come from the Bible. So they expound on it in a deeper way that it's more simple for the dumb guy like me to understand. You know, just so I can understand it. So that one was powerful in the standpoint. One of the most powerful things that book said was one of the readers said, never take anything personal. Never. Because usually when somebody is speaking to you, somebody, no matter what's going on, is what's going on in their life. It has nothing to do with me. You know, so no matter how mad somebody gets me or is angry with me, it's not personal. You know, especially when I know I haven't done anything. You know, and so there are so many books. I mean, Rich Dad, of course, you know, we start talking about fundamental principles of money, how to look at money, what is money used for, as Robert said, is a tool. So you want to have those, it's an arsenal, and you have to look. We talk about books all the time. This is probably the most read, but I know as far as books go, you know, but it's always, you're asking that question. What book are you reading? You know what I mean? Because again, you own yourself because you don't know everything. And so there's so many people and the access that we have now, there's no excuse for us not to keep reading books. And I mean, if you're in the shower, turn on an audiobook. There's not a reason for you not to be learning. There's no excuse. And I said, and I started off by saying that there are no excuses. We can find them because now are there some things that are transpired throughout our lives that are not our fault and we inherited those things? Absolutely. But for us to stay in that place, that's totally your fault. So the biggest word that I have for anybody here is accountability. And that number one is accountability itself. And if you can't be accountable to yourself, I can't be accountable to these brothers, and them trying to hold me accountable is not going to hold it quick. You know, so back to the books that they talk about, and maybe y'all have some others as well. They Can Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. And he has several books that are very profound when you start talking about wealth, resources, but also the psychology of it all as well. Very, very good books to read. Yeah, and what's his name? Allen. No, not Allen. But yeah, I'm forgetting his name, but Allen is part of the name. I'm forgetting that. Great book, not a long read. That book is not a long read as well. You know, so it's some of the books that you have are not big reads, but you can go through them and challenge yourself and say, you know what? Don't overdo it. But say, hey, let me read a book about it. Yes. Start off with it. So don't try to overextend yourself and say, I'm trying to get everything. If you start from zero, you can't go to 100 because it won't last. You won't have the discipline in order to stay that way because you never built up to that discipline. So start with that one.
I'll see you one more. Power of intention by Dr. Wayne Ryan.
And I have one more. If you're starting from the very beginning, purpose-driven life for everyone. Understand your purpose before you dive into your career. Because you have to make sure it's aligned with what you need to be doing with you. Videos will get very heavy.
I would say Rich Dad for that for me. I think probably one of the first books I only listened to my mentors on. Right? Was it free? It freed me mentally to understand that I can do these different things once the publisher. And it just opened my life. So for me, that's probably always been my good. Mine is makes me want to holler. Yeah, that's just yeah. He basically talks about his upbringing, how he allowed his mind to take him out of hood and expanding and connecting himself to different people that made him world renowned. Right? The other one is Celebrity Prophecy. Mike knows about that one. That one is more about interpersonal relationships. Why relationships matter. Things that when people grow up, things that are in them that may drive them through and be who they are. So it's called Celebrity Prophecy. Again, not financial, but I think relationships matter. So when I'm reading, I'm not just talking about numbers, I'm talking about relationships that help grow up.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. A lot of my questions based off of the conversation, talking about this gratification, delayed gratification. The journey I went on recently is finding the words better. I lived overseas last 5 years, back and forth, and kind of quickly, very quick rundown. Like a lot of our words in English are Greek oriented, right? Psychology, pseudo is a Greek word, and you know what I mean? So understanding the roots of words and the words we mean. We live in a society in the world where now we're starting to make words what we want them to mean, right? So now I get the law here say no cap. So one generation is, I'm not lying. So another generation is the other generation. And so that I think is kind of messing up people's ability to amass wealth and live their life based on principles that will gain and help you grow, because we don't even know what words mean anymore, right? And so like you're saying, that wealth is a mentality, in other words, that's synonymous is philosophy. Philosophy is based on words. What words mean, founded principles are built on word usage, how it's put together, and the governance that we live our life by words, and about everything is created by words. And so just asking you guys, what was the shift that you made in words? How what words like for instance, put it in an instant delay with gratification.
So,
Right.
Man, brilliant. I can't tell you how what you're talking about changed everything for me. And if I go more recent, my nonprofit does $100 million. We train young people from, and this is a word. Our mission says we train young people from underserved communities and help them get digital careers in IT. And we go for free. We get companies and grants to do this, right? No one would fund us or support us when we said we help underserved people. Two things happened. One, the group we were serving, which is mostly minority young people, they like, no, I'm not underserved. You're right. I am underserved because people don't give me stuff. So now they got an entitlement mindset. What we did is we changed it to underestimate. So we don't say we do underserved. We just simply say underestimate, meaning that the people we serve has the same capability and capacity as anybody else. They're just underestimated in what they can do because maybe they didn't go to college or have access to some of the resources. So I have seen our grants go up from $20 million to $100 million, et cetera. So that's what you're exactly right. That's what everything. That's why, as David pointed out, it is checking the conversations. And part of checking the conversation is not just the context, but it's also the content, those words that you're using, and being thoughtful in that. Because a lot of times, if all you say is, for example, I used to say all the time, I wrote a check to myself when I was 21. I said, when I'm 25, I want to cash this $1 million. I put it in my mirror, and I, and so every day I would say, I'm going to be a millionaire. It never happened. It only happened when I said I want to serve other people. So it is about the words, but it's also about the intention behind the words and the power. The best way to make money, the best way to do anything, stuff, etc., is find words that allow you to offer value to other people, and then it comes to you. I don't need the money. If I serve people with value and with good intentions, they tend to come back to you that way.
So, that's a good question. Thank you for answering. Like, instant and delay, like, if you would talk to me 2 years ago, you said delayed gratification. Sorry, learning about delayed gratification, right? And 2 years ago, I've been a professional now 9 years. 10 years ago, I began my journey, like, first made some actual money. If you had said delay, using the word delayed gratification itself would have turned me off. It would have turned on my microwave. Because you're talking about something delayed, but whereas when I've come to learn maturity, you understand that that's actually just gratification itself. It should have been defined gratification in the first place. This is gratification here, right? But now you're saying delayed, automatically it's out my scope, my prayer view of like understanding and building it on my philosophy. Yeah. So what words you all lives have been like, okay, I was taught this word, I was taught this concept, if you have these words,
Invest.
In
Invest is because investment is not just monetary. Again, investing in yourself, investing whether it's your mental, your spiritual, your physical, your financial, all those are areas to invest. So I might not have a dime, but I still can make investments. I can have a lot of money, but still make investments. I can be around the people and I can start investing in those individuals. So that word specifically for me, invest in my children, investing in my parents, because they invested in me, investing. So to me, that was the word that said, and so bringing home to you is delayed gratification, like you say, yep, it can have a negative connotation for somebody. But because I took delayed gratification for me personally, investing, because me delaying some of the things that I wanted, you know what? Man, I wanted to go buy that G5, but I said, you know what? I don't even want a car. Let me go invest in something else, because eventually that G5 I'm not gonna want no more. Because what I've learned is that when I buy something that I think I want right now, I don't even want it when I actually have the money to say I want to go buy it. You know what I mean? And so the more money you make, you start to realize that, you know what, these things that I wanted that I didn't have, I don't really need it, I don't really want it. And so now I've learned over the years is that I delayed that instant gratification because I wanted to invest in something that was going to give me greater gratification later on in life. Because what I'm realizing as I get older, I want to retire when I decide whatever that time is, and I want to live a good life. You know what I mean?
And those
And those investments, and those investments is what's paying for that life that I want to live. But that comes again, you know, my parents putting that into me. You know, that comes from my friends putting this into me. You know, so I'm investing in everything. Everything I'm doing is investing. Even if I so-called lose something, you know, I've invested, because you can put in the stock market, you can lose, but if you look at the history of your investing, the stock market has never lost. You know what I mean? The stock market keeps on, the S&P 500 never lost. You look at from the time it starts to where it is now, $15,000 is where you're gonna put it in, and it's gonna make money. So you're looking at it and saying, you know what? Yeah, I want something right now, but I am gonna delay it. Why? Because it's going to invest in my future. That's what I'm looking at. So you're correct in the terminology that you use, that it can be structured. But I think that it is also having this conversation. And again, this goes back to what David is saying. Have the conversation, because when you're having the conversation, you can dig a little bit deeper, and it's going to be enriching. So for me, this was enriching dialogue to say, you know what, yeah, you know what, to somebody it may be one thing, to somebody something totally different. But when we sit here and talk about it, like, you know what, yeah, it's not really delayed gratification, it's investing, you know, for greater gratification. You know what I mean? It changes the
His
mindset.
argument, which I think is brilliant.
Yeah.
It's just gratification. You gotta start redefining what gratification is, right? It's not delayed, it's just gratification. Start informing and framing around gratification. It's gonna take a little bit of time sometimes. And you start talking to people about that it takes a little bit of time. That's gratification, right? It's not delayed anymore. So I will stop using that word and start using and defining what gratification is.
So,
I love it. So I'll say that's good. So you were there. I know my nephews are home. That generation, right? So one of the things I set up with them is I do a process to slow them down. And let me give you an example. You can go buy whatever you want. Whatever you want. As long as you find an asset that's going to pay for that. So you're going to go buy the new G5, you're going to find an investment that's going to make monthly payments on that paper. Until you do that, you can't buy it. You can have instant gratification, delayed gratification, whatever you want to call it. But now I put a process around that, kind of slow that down, because I became extremely upset. Trying to be calm about it, I became very upset with some of the decisions he was making. But it went back to a statistic that I realized, you know, being a large family like mine, nearly 70% of parents either are terrified or don't have that conversation with their kids. And of that 70%, nearly 60% don't have that conversation because they are financially limited. And I was like, man, I was a product of that. That's why I was a process. So I do think it's a situation where we have to go back and create processes. You know, I tell people, what is your definition of wealth? All of our definitions should vary to a certain extent. What wealth is. For me, my definition of wealth is being in a position where I can impact those in my circle at any given moment. It doesn't mean monetary. I just need to be in a position where I can. That's my definition.
And I wanted to comment on the wording again, specifically because when you even use the term delayed is not denied. So it goes back to perspective. And when it comes to using words, we can use tired, we can use weird, we can use words that are actually true, but it's all tied to perspective. And my key word is always faith. Because I was sitting one day and, you know, we say faith can move mountains, but when we say we can move mountains, moving, how does mountain shift? when you really sit and think, okay, my faith is gonna move this mountain actually shifts. But when I was sitting in like thought one day, I was like, wow, it takes suffering, it takes an earthquake, it takes things like COVID, it takes like big things for your faith to move something. And when I realized that suffering causes a shift in order for your faith to operate, that's when I started to realize that the way that I see my perspective of my life, my trials, the words I'm speaking over my life, every single thing, plays a big role into, you know, what my life result will be. So understanding, you know, we speak all these things, faith, we have, you know, wealth, we believe all these things, but do you truly believe it? Because if you believe that you're set free, you have to truly feel that, understand that, and you can't rely on your colleagues to feel it for you. Because that's another situation. But that's, you know, just going back to the words when you guys kept saying delayed. When I hear delayed, I'm just like, delayed is not done. At the end of the day.
Yeah. That's why I understand. If you know what the end is, then all the little things you want to do, there's still gratification because it's toward that. So as long as you're aligned with what you're going for, you're good.
Yes, my brother right here.
My question for everybody in here. You all say you're all basically kind of separate. Money or friends or business endeavors and everything. When do you think that you planted enough seeds? Because, like me, for instance, I think I planted enough seeds. I was in the military 24 years retired. I did not work for the federal government. I retired in about 10 years. When I retired, I got plenty of money saved that I feel is plenty. So some people feel that they don't need to make millions and millions of dollars to reach their tree that they really grow out of. So when do you think that it's time that you should be able to say, well, I don't plant enough seeds, my tree can grow out of?
Well, to put it like this, it is based on individuality. And so starting with you, you know, said, you know what, I have double retired. You know what I mean? Military took care of me. Hey, my brother, not many people gonna be able to say that. You know what I mean? And so for you, you are content. And so I think that's what you have to start looking at. For each individual, you have to define how you want to live your life and what legacy you want to leave behind. You know what I mean? For someone who has 11 children, you know, that might be different, you know, on how many seeds I need to plant. You know what I mean? So, you know, but
The flowers almost next year.
So, like you didn't tell me something.
But from that perspective, it's going to be, everybody is going to have to define what they feel is that position and how many seeds they need to plant. Because everybody is different. Everybody wants a different lifestyle. It's not about someone who wants to have the highest lifestyle to those who say, you know what, I want to go live in a convent or I want to be in a nunnery and I don't want any of the earthly things. They feel that, you know what, and that seed planting is going to come in different forms, not just monetarily. So right now, we're planting seeds. You know what I mean? Right now, seeds are being planted. You all are going to go out and plant more seeds. Those people you touch are going to go out and plant more seeds. And so when you were talking about it, forgive me for talking with you, you know, it's them. Because you have to look at what is seeds. You know what I mean? And that's why we chose Seeds for Wealth as our company. Because we're going to be planting many seeds for the wealth that we talked about here all the time. So it's not just about the monetary aspects of it. It is how many seeds, Reverend Flowers, planted seeds. And a lot of those seeds, they need to start being tangible. You know, you want those seeds to be very tangible in the people that you talk to, those seeds to be tangible in your community, because you can have all these things, but if you're not giving back, what does it mean? You can have, the Bible says you can gain all these things, but what does it really mean? These things are going to pass away. And so at the end of the day, it is plant seeds to people who are going to be the plant seeds to the next generation, the plant seeds to the next generation. And a lot of times in our community, we haven't done enough of that.
Yeah, I'll just add on, going back to my biblical roots, and that is, if you ask the question to Abraham, how many seeds you have, Abraham would know the answer is the same as God told him, which is 2 for every cow. But that was just one man who had one son, so how can you have all these seeds? I don't know if I don't know if I would think about it in terms of when it's enough. When God calls me home, I guess someone always do what they call me for. But I think the most important thing for us is to do what we're called to do and to serve and to give back to other people. And then what you want to do is hope that you're planting into someone who's planting into someone and it's passing down, because that's the force multiplier there. So I'm not necessarily trying to figure out how many seeds I'm doing. If I can just impact one and then continue to spread it, that's what's sustainable.
Another book is the compound effect. And so, this is it right here. It is the compound effect. What are we doing in multiplying? Force multiply. How are we doing it, and how is it compounded in order to make us all better, richer? Go ahead.
I didn't say my book. My book is The Art of War.
Yes, that's a great book as well. I'll tell you, we start passing around books, everybody will keep on going over and over and over again. Yes, sir.
So it wasn't more so a question, but like a statement. I had heard a phrase in a book that I was reading, but like, can everybody read? Yeah. All right. So the phrase was in a real estate book, which was the millionaire agent or something like that. But it was work to learn before you work to earn. And so like that can be taken towards real estate, but that can also be taken towards basically everything else we're talking about, whether that's credit, whether that's home ownership, entrepreneurship, etc. Because like I said, you have to really learn what you're doing before you, like if you get out and try to chase the money, you're gonna get it. But whether that's instant or spread out, it's like if you learn, the more you learn about everything in general in life, the better off you'll be. And so work to learn before you work to earn. I feel like that's how I feel.
We appreciate that. Thank you for that. And so we do want to be respectful of everybody's time. We know that the time is near, say we're running as well. One of the things that we want to talk about, and I'll let the bond finish up, we got the 4 pillars of Seeds for Wealth. And I'll let the bond, talk to them very proudly.
Yeah, and Rob jumping here. So I think everything we do at Seeds for Wealth is predicated around the 4 pillars of wealth building. And we look at that from, first you have to address mindset, right? Before you do anything, you have to put anything in there so you address your mindset. Next is about the education, because once you open your mind up to things, now you can start to take things that, so whether it's investing in yourself to come to seminars and symposiums like this, to receive that information, that's one of the most underrated investments. It's an investment we put in ourselves. We'll go out and we'll spend $100 on a pair of shoes, but we won't spend $100 on ourselves to make ourselves better. So just keep that in mind. And then the third one is investments. Start your mindset, get an education. Now you're in a position where you can start to do investments. And it doesn't have to be an investment from a monetary perspective. Sometimes it can be an investment in the relationship you have around you. That's a broad spectrum, and that's one of the things I had to open my mind up to. That's right. Relationships I have around me, but more importantly, time. There's no amount of money in this world that can buy back space. Regardless. No time machine creates. So for me, I don't trade time for money. Everything I do is around how can I get more time to do the things I love, to be around the people I love, the things that matter to me. And then the final pillar of that is what we call is navigation. Because the best example of my lifetime would be you see billionaires that go bankrupt. And growing up, my neighborhood was just, they were still they were rich, that's why. But they learned in school how to navigate circumstances. Come back from that. You will have ups and downs as you build wealth, whether it's financially or wherever it may be, even emotionally. We have good days, we have bad days. You have to navigate those, right? So navigating and understanding how it's navigating on a regular basis is very important when you have courses on that too as well. So Mike Rob, if I miss anything there, I'll address those pieces. Let me know.
I just want to say thank you guys for coming out again. Thanks, that's about flowers in this thing. This is the end of the conversation. We do it a little bit more often. Mike needs a lot of this along with Anthony in Atlanta. And so he and myself, we hear a lot more. So more to come from Seeds for Wealth. Follow us at For Wealth on the social media platforms and also at forwealth.com. It's on the website. But you'll be here on us. And one more, you guys, we're out there a little bit. We can answer questions. We can point you in the right direction. So this is really great.
Yes, before we close down, I just want to recognize Bill Taylor and Tiffany. I'll speak to that a little bit as well.
Yeah, so Wealth Group is an investment firm and a brokerage. We have our broker and CEO and also our president here, right over there. That helps with all investments here in the DFW area abroad. When it comes to finding your niche, knows how to move your capital, your cash, whatever it may be that you have. We have over 20 plus years of experience in the investment deals when we have our CEO as well lives in California, Mr. Ron Collins, that helps us with every deal on the back end when it comes to underwriting deals, things like that. We've got the expertise and knowledge to do that. And also the resources, the contractors, we do development. And we also do research every single day on the Dallas Fort Worth market and what's taking place. So understanding the market, the economy, and the shifts, our team is knowledgeable and equipped with everything that you need in order to make sure that you make the most profit out of your investment. So follow us at Milton Realty Group. You can follow myself personally at Tiffany Sharonda, and I'm willing to have a one-on-one conversation with you, maybe even some of my team that can go deeper. We do a ride-along. All of the gentlemen have joined me in the ride-along before, where we take you on a complete tour through the DFW area, show you all the lucrative investment opportunities from West Dallas to South Dallas, location at the Fair Park. We also have the Universal Studios and so many big, companies moving to Dallas. Right now is the best place or the best time to get involved in real estate. You wait 5 years, you will probably best place, yes, best place, and most of the place when it comes to moving and floating your money. So definitely speak with me. Remember, you don't have to have a lot. We have bankers here who have the money for you, but it starts with a conversation. It starts with taking that first step, and don't limit yourself to not taking that first step. And my team, we're my team. If you guys would like to raise your hand a little bit, they're here to assist you as well. Like I said, it's not only myself. I have a lot of people behind me. So yeah.
Good, thank you. If you could, I just want to thank our panelists, Robert, so there is food for you all out here, for you to enjoy. And again, everybody is here. If you have one-on-one questions that you would like to ask, they're here to do it as well. And we want to close out with Reverend Flowers and give him a special thanks.
Really appreciate the time. The amount of respect I have for him and what he does in this area, I think most of you know him already. I don't have to say what he does in this area, but I have a lot of respect for that. So you'll be seeing me a lot more side by side working with him, wherever I can support him. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, man. I'm honored. Hey, can we give this team my early on, anytime you come in this facility, I challenge you to have a takeaway. So hopefully today you made some notes. Hopefully today you made some face contact and you brought plenty of business cards because again, it's a great opportunity to capitalize on what God is doing. Don't leave here just saying, hey, I want to get some hope. No, leave here saying, God put me in the presence of some great resources that could change my life totally. I do a lot of different things in the community, and while they're finishing up getting the food break, and some great food available for us today, and then don't feel like you have to just grab it and rush. The building, the facility is here to network. So as long as you guys want to be here, we're here. All right? And so enjoy the food and network and build some partnerships and some relationships. Don't let these guys leave here and this beautiful lady leave here and then you say, man, I should have talked to him. Man, I should have talked to him. How many times have you ever been in the presence of so many millionaires? Don't happen every day. We run shoulders with a lot of good people. Yes. And we sit at the table with a lot of folks. But to be able to come to a symposium like this, look like us, for us, trying to empower us, it's important that we capitalize on it and don't leave here the same way we came. Just a little bit about me. I'm Pastor Flowers, the Empowerment Center. Some of you are in this room right now, where you're sitting right here, where you're sitting right there. This is where people's oil used to get changed in their cars. This was an abandoned Jiffy Lube when I bought it for $675,000. It was a despicable building. And it was a vacant building. And I shall never forget it, graffiti all over it. And I used to come here every day and just lay hands on this building. Believe in God. I said, Lord, I don't need much. I don't need a big mega church. I just need a place where people can be empowered mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, financially. Not church as usual, but a place where we can provide a hand up, not a hand down. Where we can empower and break the cycle of poverty, encouraging people. Not being judgmental, self-centered, egotistical, prideful, or puffed up. Meeting people right where they are. Because we know the word of God tells us that whatever we do for the least of these, we've done it unto him. One of the last time before I close on this building, I'll never forget it. I'm gonna try not to get emotional. Because the building was boarded up, but some of the local people who had issues, druggies, dope fiends, they would house in here. And there was a hole right about there. And I just felt in my spirit that God was going to move, and I was going to get that 675 and buy this door. There's a junkie over here in this corner. And he was hitting the pipe. And I said, in a minute, you're going to have to find somewhere else to get high. He threw a bottle at me. Get him. Anyway, to go long story short, that same person who was getting high, I walked him through his rehabilitation. We bought this building, we tore it down, and we built it all the way back up. 1.5 later, this is the Empowerment Center. And we're committed to making a difference in this community. We're here for the long haul. I've been working on a book called The Power of Transformation and the Demise of Change. He's talking about books. I started yelling, hey, my book is the best. The Power of Transformation and the Demise of Change. The demise of change is when people start saying, we're going to change the community. We're going to change the situation. But we're not committed to it, so it becomes a demise. You start out strong, but then when it gets tough, when somebody gets shot right in front of your empowerment center, or they break in the building and steal all the computers, and you have to make a call to the community, and they bring the computers back in 24 hours. That type of stuff right there. Make people say, I don't think I want to go in there again. But here it is, when you're committed to transformation, and sometimes you got to look at yourself and transforming your situation. Change is temporary. I can take off this gray suit, hang it in a closet, send it to the cleaners, put it back on tomorrow. I changed it. But if I take this suit off and take some scissors and cut it up into a million pieces, I transformed it into rags. I can never put it on again. As we're looking at empowering people at 2200 saying, we look for transformation, we don't look for change. Because once you transform the mindset to where we start rubbing shoulders with brothers and sisters who's going to show us, who's going to provide us that hand up, not a hand out, to help us achieve those dreams and those realities, helping you turn your dreams into reality. That's when the transformation process starts.
Speaking of hand up, on behalf of all of my partners and panelists here, we want to be a part of that change in here. We so appreciate the show.
And it's heavy.
We'll go there for you.
So, but at the end of the day, see, this is what I mean. When God gives vision, I hope you grasp this. When God gives vision, he said provision. Did you catch that?
Yeah.
And for the slow who don't know, let me say it one more time. When God gives vision, he sends provision. And whom he calls, he qualifies. You're qualified to obtain your dreams, your aspirations, the wealth that you dream about, even though naysayers and backbiters and liars, the enemy has came and sit on your shoulder and whisper those sweet nothings in your ear. You're never going to come out of poverty. You was broke, your daddy was broke, your mama was broke, your cousin was broke, and you're messing with a broke dude or a broke woman. I believe the blood of Jesus, so they cast it back to the hell. Yeah, pits of hell and said, no, great is he within me, and he's within the world. And then he tells us how good and how pleasant it is. As well, the last thought I want to leave you with is this. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, or sit in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and he meditates on it day and night. He said we will be like a tree planted beside rivers of water, whose leaves shall not wither, but produce fruit in its season. See, the what fruit? In its season. It says everything that he touched should prosper. The choice is yours. Who's reported when you believe? Let us pray. Father God, in the name of Jesus Christ, Lord, I thank you for this awesome team. Thank you for this awesome panel. I thank you for what you're about to do in this season. Today was the first day of some of our lives, and it's going to be transformed forever. Father, I ask that you just continue to bless each one of us as we dive in deeper to what you called us to do. We ask that you bless us mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and financially. Let us be encouraged, regardless of what the economic situation is in the world. We know that you still own the cattle of 1,000 hills, and the hills of the cattle stand. And the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. And you said you won't hold no good gift from us. So Lord, let us achieve that. Let us achieve that financial literacy. Let us achieve that partnership, that relationship, so we can enjoy what you promised us over in John 10:10, when you said you came to give life and life more life. Nothing wrong with us enjoying the life. Let us do what you did in heaven. In Jesus Christ's name, I pray, and those who agree to simply say amen. Amen. And Lord, bless this food that is nourishment to our bodies as well as our minds. In Christ's name, I pray, and those who agree to say amen. Amen. And I'll say one more thing. Can we get the caterer so she can give us instructions? Okay. Every time we come together, we end with a declaration of our faith. Because how many of y'all believe that God has everything that you need? If you believe it, say amen. I'm blessed to be around believers who love God, but they also know that faith without works is dead. You got to put something with something that has something. And so whenever I leave or I depart, I finish giving a lecture, I end with the declaration of my faith, and I'm going to share that with you guys. And it's real simple. If you believe God has everything that you need, just repeat after me. Say, God's got it. God's got it. That was a woman, man. You act like you ain't scared. Say, God got it. God's got it. I want it. By my faith. By my faith. And my works. And my works. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. After I get it. After I get it. I'll tell the word. I'll tell the word. God had it. God had it. I want it. I want it. And now I got it. And now I got it. Oh, blessing. Amen. And carry it.